Yeah. What? RTP! It's almost Halloween and we know you want some candy. Watching rom-coms feeling kinda handsy. Baby girl, I hope you're not afraid of the dark, cause of these three baddies gonna tear this film apart. Layers on layers, Todd dressed like a mummy. Big Mike gonna try and date your mommy. Your girl Paige is a stone cold meanie. Romancing a podcast on Halloween. Mikey is single, ladies.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Pod. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
I'm Mikey Randolph.
And I'm Todd Schlosser. And this week we watched
So I Married an Axe Murderer.
So this is clearly not the first time any of us had seen this movie, right?
No, absolutely
No.
not.
I love this movie growing up.
Oh my God. Okay, so Mikey, I don't know if you had the same experience I had with this movie growing up, but this movie was my humor style growing up.
Oh, no.
Oh, I know. That is the correct response to that page. I probably haven't seen this movie in like 15 years. And looking back on it, I'm like, oh my God, I remember quoting so many things from this movie in my childhood. It's embarrassing.
Oh, yes.
Like there are so many lines in here. I was like, oh, I would say that shit to my brothers all the time.
Oh, yeah. I still quote this movie pretty frequently. But the thing that I realized
Hello.
Yeah, exactly.
on this watch through, I was like, how insufferable would Mike Myers be as a real person? Like his character as a real person. Like I had an employee at one point that basically talked like that. And everyone was just like, what's up with that guy? Like, is he okay?
So, Paige, what you're describing is exactly why I did not have many friends in high school.
This person I'm describing did not have many friends either.
Yeah, because, I mean, no joke, like probably 8th grade through sophomore year of high school,
Oh, my God.
I talked like this. I mean, looking back, I'm like, why did anyone hang out with me? But they also did it too. Like, it was just like a thing.
Yeah. I mean, this is pre-Austin Powers, but when you were in high school, Austin Powers would have been out and popular and
Yes.
in the lexicon.
Yeah.
And I feel like Austin Powers has a lot of the same, like, groovy, baby.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same. It's just British.
Yeah. This is very before high school for me. Like, oh shit, I was 11 when this came out. So like, this is probably mainly middle school we talked like this.
I will say that I really like this toned down version of Michael Myers a lot better, I think, than like an Austin Powers character.
Oh yeah.
I would argue, and so as I'll reveal in fun facts later, I did a very deep dive on the history of this film.
Good.
But one of the this film was not critically, it didn't do well critically.
Nor commercially. We'll talk about that in box office. Yeah.
Nor commercially until VHS and DVD, where it found like a cult audience.
Yeah.
I believe it was Roger Ebert who said this is a mediocre movie with a good movie trapped inside.
I mean, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where I'm watching it and I'm like, I love this movie. I think it is a good movie as is, but I am also here for a toned down version of this movie.
Me too.
Where it's not Mike Myers, where it is much more of a straightforward romantic comedy and not as crazy. I feel like I would like that too.
So yeah, watching this movie as an adult, I see this movie now as a child's movie that thinks it's a movie for adults.
So here's a fun fact.
Already? I unlocked a fun fact, Mikey.
You've unlocked a fun fact.
We need to make that a thing, by the way. I'm sorry. Mikey, that needs to be a thing. Sorry, Paige, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike Myers. I don't know if you know very much about his experience on the set of Wayne's World, which came out the year before.
Yeah.
But he fought with that director literally the entire production. If you want to know more about it, Page 7 does pop history episodes on Tuesdays instead of Thursdays, and they did one on Wayne's World. They cover it extensively.
Awesome.
Highly recommend.
Love Page 7.
Love it. So he had fought with the entire production staff through Wayne's World. It's a real bad experience. It's a miracle that movie got made. Even more of a miracle that there was a sequel.
One got made.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was like, there's a sequel.
A year later. I think the sequel's better, personally. That's just... Anyway, so...
Well, they certainly crossed all their T's and dotted all their lowercase J's with that second one.
Absolutely. So in between the first and second Wayne's World, they filmed this movie.
Yeah.
and I've got a lot more notes about the production later, but one of the things was he fought with the director on this movie the entire production.
Is that just like a Mike Myers thing? Is he like a closet douche?
Yes, he's really hard to work with.
Okay.
Well, and here's the thing.
You ruin all my favorite people.
Well, the director of this movie has kind of come to Mike Myers' defense.
Oh, okay.
In saying that the reason that he fights with people is because he has such a strong creative vision. He wants it to be a certain way, but in being so inflexible, he ruins the production season.
So at what point did the director come to his defense in that statement?
Well, here's the thing, because other people have just said he's an asshole, no one should work with him.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But the reason why I bring this up is because in many interviews, that director, especially interviews at the time, has said that he, the director, wanted to make a movie for 30-year-olds, and Mike Myers wanted to make a movie for 12-year-olds.
Yes! Yeah, okay.
And that's where the clash happened, and that's how they couldn't get along. There was also, and I found this really interesting, Mike Myers had a phrase that he would use. It was lay down tracks, one-eyed jacks. And what that means is whenever he saw them putting down tracks for like a moving camera shot, he would go into his trailer and not come out until the tracks were put away.
What?
Yes, he refused to be in any shots, because he didn't believe that a moving shot served the joke, and he wanted jokes to be shot head on, and so that the joke would be the focal point and not the movement of the camera.
What?
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
But that's what we're dealing with on this movie.
We probably should just get into the movie, but I do want to say this. Coming from someone who grew up on improv comedy and SNL, like I can sort of understand why he feels that way. But
Yes,
having
100%.
grown out of that and learning quite a bit about cinematography just from my day job, like you can still be very funny in a moving shot. I've seen people with a shoulder mount Steadicam be funnier than anything I've ever seen on SNL. Like you don't need to have cue cards to be funny, Mike. Let's do this.
The camera can also be a comedic element.
Yeah.
This was something I made. I tried to make a project probably almost 7 years ago at this point. I was making it with a person who was very, very funny, and they were comedically wonderful, did not understand cinematography, and would consistently be like, no, we have to shoot something this way. And I'm like, we can't. I'm not a great cinematographer, but I know enough to be like, we can't. We have to shoot things X way or else it will not cut together well. And it doomed the project.
Yeah.
So like him having that level of a control issue about it, pretty rough. It's a miracle this movie got made, basically.
Yeah. Let me just say this about it, because, and this is something I'm super passionate about, but I feel like in order for a movie to be a great comedy, you have to have very funny people writing it, very funny people on screen, and a very funny person editing it, because any of those three components being bad is going to ruin it.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to make a very, very good movie that the fact that any get made is amazing. And I do love this movie. I think it's great.
I do too.
But I feel like it is a movie for 12-year-olds. But it's like, to me, it's like what a 12-year-old thinks their 30s will be like.
Yes.
I agree, Todd.
Incident. When I was like 12, I was like, I'm gonna be like this. This is gonna be fun.
And
Like,
Mikey, you are like this. You are
No.
Mike Myers in this movie.
Well, I'm going to
Hello.
argue.
Hello. Hell yeah, Mikey.
You're absolutely right, because it was written by somebody else. We have to get into it later, but the things that get lost between the original version and the version we got are things that a 12-year-old wouldn't care about. And the things that get added and the things that stay are the things that a 12-year-old wants in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even their sex scene is like, I spent the night over there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get into this fucking movie. Let's just get through it.
We open on the credits with an aerial shot of San Francisco with text over it to a cover of the song There She Goes by the Boo Radleys.
Yeah.
Now, the original version is by the Laws. This song appears 3 different times in this film. This first one's a cover. The other 2 are the original by the Laws. And it's because it was Mike Myers' favorite song at the time. So he insisted that it be added to the movie multiple times. He thinks it's the perfect pop song. And here's the thing. I'm not going to say he's wrong. The only reason I noticed it is because I read about it, because I genuinely like the song as well.
Me too. I think it's a great song. And I think it fits this movie. You know, it probably fits a lot of rom-coms, but it fits this movie.
It was in a lot of rom-coms at the time, especially a few years after this when Sixpence None the Richer covered it. Then it was in fucking everything.
Yeah, until Semi-Charmed Kind of Life came out, it was like the go-to rom-com song.
Oh, Semi-Charmed Kind of Life, baby, baby.
Look, 90s pop is best pop. We all know it's
Hell
true.
yeah.
That's true. That's true. So we cut to the outside of Rhodes Coffee Shop
On Jack Kerouac Boulevard.
on Jack Kerouac Boulevard. There's a lot of things named kind of twee in this movie. We follow the camera in and we follow a giant cappuccino through the room.
I loved that shot as a kid.
It's a great shot.
And I will say, I think that shot like made me want to figure out how to be a cinematographer on some level, because as a kid, I was like, how did they do that? And like I broke it down. Like I had to know. So I feel like that sort of like sparked the curiosity on how to get camera angles and stuff like that, which is insane.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. That's one of the few very cool shots in this movie.
Yeah.
But it is a really cool shot, and I still like it.
Yeah.
I think that should have been the credits. I think they do it after the credits, but probably should have been the whole credits.
Yeah.
Like Naked Gun, but like with a cappuccino instead of a cop car.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
She hands Mike Myers the cappuccino, and he says, "Excuse me, miss, there seems to be some mistake. I ordered a large." Hello! This is our first introduction to his weird vocal tick.
The joke's funny.
It is
You don't
funny.
have to say hello.
Yes. So he just came off Wayne's World. It's like Schwing.
Yeah,
It's the same. And I would say it's hat on a hat. It's like you made the joke once. It's very funny. You don't need to do anything after that. Your job is done.
And he literally says it twice back to back.
Yes.
And this one?
Yes.
He goes, hello, and then again.
Hello.
It's like the audience didn't give him the proper response he was expecting, so he took it again, thinking they would just cut one of them out, and they did not.
Well, this movie has a lot of improv, and I think I think some of it might be things weren't cut. I don't know. But he turns to his best friend sitting next to him, Tony, and says, "What's the deal with your clothes? You look like Huggy Bear."
I love Tony so much.
Yes, Tony's the best. I love Tony's whole subplot.
Me too.
I love Tony's character. It's the best part of the movie.
I have met the actor who played Tony.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my God, can we interview? I love this guy so
No.
much.
He's not nice.
Oh,
What? Paige, stop it!
You ruined everything.
So okay. So here's how. When I first got to LA, I had to find a new doctor, obviously, because I didn't live at home anymore.
Is he your doctor?
We had the same doctor for like 10 seconds. Because I hadn't picked like a primary care person, so I just had to like get a physical in and then figure stuff out.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in the waiting room and he looks familiar and I can't quite place him. And he's on the phone with his agent being like, "Well, if I'm not going to fucking do it, I want $1 million." And he's just being the most insane asshole on the phone. And I was just like, who is that guy? Like, and why is he having this conversation that loud in this waiting room? I'm the only one here. Like, what's happening? And so he finishes the call and is just like, "Excuse me," and then goes in to the doctor's office. And I'm like, what? And then I realize who it is. Like, I'm like, oh my God. It's Tony, and he was on Criminal Minds, I think, for forever, which I just didn't watch, so it didn't like register.
Yeah, I was like, because I was about to be like, how is he making so much?
And so he finishes whatever. I go in next, and it's a very small doctor's office. There's only one bathroom. And so they're like, "Hey, we need you to take a urine sample." I'm like, fine.
Sure.
So I go in, I take a urine sample, and they're like, "You have to write your name on this label and put it on there." I was like, cool. So I do, and there's another sample sitting there, and I set mine down next to it, and it's his, and he's autographed it.
Oh my God, that's okay. Honestly, I want to get to the level of famous where I'm autographing urine samples.
You're like, "This is my piss. You're welcome." Like, it's so crazy. And
That's
I
amazing.
laughed in that bathroom for like 10 minutes and then had to compose myself as I walked out, and the doctor was like, like the whole cast of Criminal Minds comes here. And I'm like,
You don't say.
What? That's a HIPAA violation.
yeah, it is. It super is.
But the joke is so much funnier, Paige, and I don't know why you buried the lead on this, but he is still dressed like Huggy Bear at the doctor's office.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
But I love Tony in this movie. He's one of my favorite
He's
characters.
great in this movie.
He and his chief subplot is my favorite bit
Yes.
of
Yes.
this movie by
Yes.
far. It is so funny.
good.
And I think they sort of mimic it in the movie The Other Guys. If you've seen
Yes.
that
Yeah.
movie, it's not a direct ripoff, but it
It's
feels
the
like an
same
homage
idea.
to me. Yeah, I love it.
In some ways, this movie is A for 12-year-olds, and in other ways, it is ahead of its time. And I think the combination of the two resulted in bad critical reception and not a lot of money.
But a great movie. I love it.
Great movie.
But let's move on. I'm sorry to sidetrack us. Yeah.
No, it's all
So anyway,
good.
Tony's an undercover cop, right?
Right. Tony's an undercover cop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mike Myers even says, "You look like an undercover cop trying to look cool," and he goes, "I am an undercover cop trying to look cool."
Trying to look
Yeah.
cool.
And I love that for two reasons, because it's a very funny joke, but it's also setting up who Tony is very quickly.
Yeah.
Yes. So the first he establishes this guy's really important job and left the whole movie wondering, what does Michael Myers do for a living?
Because he's never at work. He never works. You never see him work.
Never.
He seems to have a shitload of money. He's driving
Yes.
the same car Robert Redford drives in the movie Sneakers. It's the only
Right.
time I've ever seen that kind of convertible ever. Like, how did he get all this money?
I love sneakers.
Mikey, no joke. I have a whole movie idea. It's like an updated Sneakers, and it's awesome. Paige, stop us from sidetracking,
sorry,
please.
The only job this movie establishes Mike Myers as having is poet. And I did a lot of research to find out what his actual job was. And 9 out of 10 articles listed it as poet. And the 10th one was the winner. And I have to wait till the end of the movie to tell you why.
No! Paige! You are so mean. Okay, fine.
So, it'll result in like a half-hour discussion if we get into it now. But suffice it to say, Mike Myers does have a real job in this movie.
Okay.
It is not enough to fund his lifestyle.
My guess is television kids presenter.
No, you mean like Mrs. Doubtfire and other movies that take place in San Francisco that people can't afford? Yeah.
Can I just say, as a kid, I was obsessed with the guy who was on stage
Yes!
before
Yes!
Mike Myers.
Yes!
I thought that his poem, entitled something to the effect of "An Open Apology to the Aliens that Abducted Me While I Had a Panic Attack on Their Mothership."
Yeah, who I inflicted great.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And then he takes a beat and says, "Autobiographical."
Yeah.
And that to me was the funniest joke. I thought that was so funny. And I think one of the reasons is he plays it straight. Like, he's not
Yes.
playing it like it's a joke. It's so good. It is so funny.
Right.
And he looks like Carrot Top did in 93. So I thought that was hilarious
He
too.
does look like Carrot Top. He's not Carrot Top. He is a comedian. Not a very
I'm sure.
famous one, but now I'm kind of bummed we don't get that poem.
Me too.
There were actually multiple other poets that were supposed to be in this scene that got cut for time.
Oh.
So this is where we hear Mike Myers is going to do a poem about Sherry. Why'd you break up with Sherry? She's a klepto. She stole my cat.
yeah.
God.
This is where, and this is literally 5 minutes into the movie, we're getting the thesis statement of you find reasons to break up with people, and that's
Yes.
why you're alone.
So this hit me different as an adult.
Oh, did it, Mikey? That's strange. Why did it hit
Really?
you differently?
Wait,
Maybe
you're alone?
To quote your goddaughter, "You're all alone in the world."
yes. Sometimes, maybe in the past, I've embellished parts of a person to justify not being with them.
There you go.
So, Mikey, listen, I've been around for a lot of these kind of conversations, and I don't think you've ever broken up with someone because A, you thought they were in the mafia, or they
Right.
smelled like soup,
right?
or they stole your cat. So I think you're somewhat in the clear, although you do have a pattern like this.
So, fun Mikey fact, I have broken up with someone about a smell before.
Was it beef stew?
No, it was just a weird smell. And like when you're like on a date or something, you don't notice. But if you get like if you're like kissing or whatever, I'm like, what is that?
Weird perfume? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was. And
Well, I do like the girl that he talks about being in the mafia, and
Yes. She was in the Cosa Nostra.
yeah, because she wouldn't tell me her job, and then Tony's like, she was unemployed.
Well, that's just the perfect cover page.
Yeah.
which is a better reason to break up with someone. I mean,
Wow. Wow, you better be employed, ladies.
Kicking people while they're down, Mikey.
But I mean, like, not like you're dating them and then they get laid off. I just meant like, I don't know. I think it'd be hard to date if I was unemployed.
I don't know. I feel like you'd have a lot of free time. You'd be able to like accommodate, anyone's schedule. It'd be great.
I feel like it depends on, is unemployment a lifestyle or just a
circumstance,
a point in their life?
So, but,
right.
But then your whole dating is trying to figure out that.
Yeah.
They're always like, hey, do you want to meet at the park?
Yeah. Or then like the second date, she would try to like get the check and then I'd feel guilty. And then there'd be a lot of weird dynamics there.
Yeah.
So the next scene we get is the MC calls Mike Myers up. Now, the MC was actually supposed to play one of the other poets.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, in the rewrite, like 1 or 2 rewrites before what got filmed. And she was supposed to be a poet who performed in a burlap sack. Her character was only known as the Sack.
Oh, God. So can I just say this next little bit I had so many questions about, because he gets on the stage and it's not just he recites a poem like everybody else did. He has a jazz band
and a slideshow.
Yeah, he's got a PowerPoint presentation
timed to the jazz.
Yes.
And this is before PowerPoint. Someone was running that slideshow.
I know. So this one poem has a 5-man crew. He's got 3 in the band, 1 person running the slides, and him.
Right.
When do they rehearse? Like, what are they doing? They can't make money at this.
Yeah, I had to imagine that the band was like the house band for the coffee shop.
But they follow him around.
I know, and that's what's crazy. Well, here's the other thing, too. They play the same song every time.
That's true, yeah.
Even though his poems change slightly.
He just changes the words.
But this scene, this is the first introduction we have of the woman, woman, woman poem.
Yes.
This scene took 14 hours to film.
Why?
Because Mike Myers had trouble getting the words and the rhythm right with the music and the slides, and he wrote the poem.
Really? What? He wrote the poem and he couldn't get it right?
Yes.
I wonder if he just doesn't have any like musical timing. Like I could see that being difficult.
That would be me. But if I'm not a professional poet, I would just be like, you know what? I'm at a coffee shop. I'll just be a shitty beat poem and then be done.
Yeah.
Well, trying to get your words in time with music like that is difficult. Like, I don't know if anyone here's been in Into the Woods, but that shit is hard.
I was in the orchestra for Into the Woods.
Okay, did you see the witch bash her head against a brick wall trying to be like, but it isn't my fault. I was given those beans. You were persuading me to trade my like, and you're just
yeah.
I can't. I hate it. It's so difficult.
It takes a lot of rehearsal. Yeah.
But yeah, so it took 14 hours to shoot that one scene.
That's insane. I remember laughing so hard at the picture of that woman with the cat.
With the cat just looking out the window.
Yeah. God, it was so funny.
It is really, really funny.
I mean, I'll admit I laughed when I saw it yesterday. I thought that was hilarious.
It was really funny.
And I knew it was coming. You know what's insane, though? What's insane about this is he definitely brought that woman to this coffee shop while they were dating. People who are there know her. And now he's showing her in his presentation, calling her a thief. That to me was insane.
Yeah. The thing that I think is really interesting about this first poem that we don't really get with anything else, but it kind of sets the stage for some of the other poems, is he does the refrain about they make me horny Saturday morning, girls and cartoons will leave me in ruins.
Yeah.
I want to be Betty's Barney. That sets the stage for the way he views women, I think, a little bit.
Oh, yeah?
Where he is not viewing women as whole people. That's why one weird thing turns him off.
I mean, I can see that. I also got the vibe that he just had commitment issues, because I know people like that who will just look for anything as a reason to get out because they're sort of afraid to commit to someone in like a lifelong or a long-term relationship type scenario.
Yeah, I think the rest of the movie, we kind of see him reduce these women to like one thing or one trait.
Yeah.
And that's the only information we get about them in the movie.
Like they smell like soup.
Well,
I mean, now granted, that's probably the most memorable thing.
After a breakup, you do sum people up with like a one sentence.
Well, it's kind of like Sherry, the girl he broke up with because she stole his cat. When he talks to his mom about Sherry later, his mom has a much different view of Sherry and a different idea of what their relationship was like, and clearly a more fleshed out version.
Oh, yeah.
Also, this movie doesn't pass the Bechdel test.
No. And I'll say this, that mom character is also one of my favorite in this whole movie.
I love her. And we have to get to her in like a scene or two.
Yeah.
So he stops at a butcher shop called Meats of the World.
Okay, they had a meat cute at a meat store. I thought that was funny.
It's a meat.
Yeah.
M-E-A-T.
I know, it was an M-E-A-T cute. Yeah, I loved it.
Now, this butcher shop is a real butcher shop.
Really?
What?
Yes, it's Prudente Meats in North Beach, which is the Italian neighborhood in San Francisco.
Okay, cool.
So he comes in, he asks her if they have haggis because his parents are Scottish.
Yeah.
Now, his parents were a late addition to the script. They weren't in any versions prior to Mike Myers taking over and doing rewrites.
Mike Myers wanted to play the dad character, so he was like, ooh, what if we did parents?
Yes, he did. And no one else wanted him to do it. So he was not officially cast as his dad until after the read through because he and the director fought about it.
Wow. And I do know, because I love this director, but
Yes.
this is the last movie he ever directed.
Yes, this is the last movie he ever directed.
No.
Yeah. He's been doing TV very steadily for years.
Okay.
But very successfully.
Yeah. Like he's like one of the executive producers of The West Wing. So like if you know that show, he directed most of those episodes.
Yeah.
He will say that this movie ruining his movie career is the best thing that could have happened to him.
Yeah, and it
essentially.
probably is, and he prefers TV.
Yeah.
He's also a very good director. But I thought that the haggis thing, I had to look it up. Do you know what haggis is?
Yeah.
Yes, I have actually had haggis.
Oh,
What?
Is it good?
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Oh, okay. I've never had it. I don't really like organ meat, and it's like heart and liver and lungs minced together with onion. And I was like, ugh,
It's sewn into an intestine.
that does not sound good.
My dad, when my parents were in the UK, my dad loved it. He was like, this is great. I don't know what anyone's making jokes about. Haggis is the shit.
But he pays like $20 for it in the 90s. Like, that's an expensive piece of meat.
After this, we cut to his parents' house, which is the first time we see his dad. Now, his dad is an SNL character that had been on SNL for the years prior that he shoehorns into this movie.
Yeah.
So we get to the parents' house where they're playing the Bay City Rollers.
SATURDAY.
Night.
I love it.
My mother texted me last night to be like, I saw the Bay City Rollers in Tahoe in 1982.
Nice. All right. Cool.
Cool. The soccer game is about to begin. I thought it was funny that it was the World Series of Soccer, and I was like, isn't it the World Cup? But
Yeah, so
Yes,
I don't
you were
know.
correct.
Like, I don't know if they have a World Series over in the UK, but it's
That
no
might be
idea.
it.
yeah, I don't know enough about it. It's not the Premier League though, because they would call it the Premier League, and the dad would also call it football. He would not call it soccer if he's from Scotland. Yeah,
yes.
I'm sure they did that because it would like for the American audience, but still.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I like that very clearly on the screen, they're like Scotland versus USA.
Yeah.
But the thing that cracked me up about it is, so I have a few British friends that still keep up with football, and you have to either buy the fancy cable
Yeah.
that will play it in your time zone, or you have to get up at like 3 a.m.
Yeah,
to watch football. It's crazy.
it's a commitment I do not have.
No, me neither.
I like Premier League soccer. It's like the best soccer you can watch,
No, I don't. I can't commit to something like that. You know, the Premier League stole my cat.
and it smells like soup. I love so much about this scene because the mom is amazing. Mike Myers as his dad is hilarious. And I love how his dad refers to Mike Myers' younger brother as Head
But heed.
and does not call him anything else the rest of the movie. So much so that his name in the credits is H-E-E-D, Heed.
Which we know that his name is William.
Yeah.
Because he says it in this scene once, but
And then they call him Heed the rest of the movie.
apparently there was supposed to be a shot of him at the wedding at the end of the movie with huge dreadlocks to like make his head even bigger.
Yeah.
And Mike Myers was like, it's too much.
Yeah.
But the first thing he says in this scene is, give your mother a kiss or I'll kick your teeth in.
Yeah.
Which is so great.
I love that it establishes their relationship here too, the mom and dad, because she
Yes.
starts singing And he's
Yes.
he yells at her, "Shut it!"
And then she just keeps singing.
She's like, "No."
Fuck you.
Yeah, I loved it so much.
This is where we get a couple of jokes that haven't aged well.
Yeah.
A lot of the dad doesn't age super well.
Except the thing that does age super duper well, though, is his commitment to conspiracy theories.
It's
Yes.
both of them. Yeah, like this movie calls that our parents were going to be the ones that believed in anti-vax, Pizzagate, flat earthers. And listen, 1 out of 3 isn't bad, God praise the dome, but like the other 2 are insane.
Yeah, he's telling Tony his theories, and it's Lyndon LaRouche's theories specifically, if you want to get like real official about it.
About the Pentaveret.
The Pentaveret, the Queen, the Vatican, the Gettys, the Rothschilds, and the Colonel before he went tats up.
This is one of those things that I quoted a lot as a kid.
Yes.
When Mike Myers walks back in with the kid and he goes, "Dad, how can you hate the Colonel?" And he goes, "He puts an addictive chemical in the chicken that makes you crave for it nightly. Smarters." I remember thinking that was the funniest thing. Oh my God.
The thing that I used to quote a lot is in the very next cut where he walks into the kitchen with his mom and she says, "Would you like a juice? I juice everything now. I got myself a juice tiger. I'm on the Weekly World News Garth Brooks juice diet."
God, Paige, you do her voice
I
so
know,
well.
it's so
Thank
good, guys.
you.
Joining us, the lady who played the homeless woman in Home Alone 2. I forget the actress's name, but she's amazing. And she was the
She's
homeless
so
lady in
good.
Home Alone 2.
Yeah. So this is the one place where we get Heed's name because we cut back into the living room with his dad and it just, "William, move your head." Now, Head
Yeah.
was an actual 16-year-old who filmed all of his scenes over one weekend that happened to be his birthday weekend.
Oh my
And
God.
So he's been like his entire birthday weekend just being berated for the size of his head.
That's
and
amazing.
as an adult, he's like, "Hey, I got to be in a hilarious movie.
Yeah.
No regrets."
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is where we get it's a virtual planetoid.
It's like Sputnik. It's spherical, but quite pointy in parts.
Pointy parts. We cut back into the kitchen where his mom is, "Sherry's late." And he's like, "Oh, Sherry and I broke up." She's, "I liked Sherry." And he's like, "Well, don't make it harder on me."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Why should I make it easier? You're good together, you and Sherry. You knew that." And
Paige has a really good Scottish accent, Mikey.
Yeah, Paige is really killing it.
Thank you. This is where he's like, "I'm terrified of marriage."
Yeah.
And this is where she introduces the like honeymoon killer plot.
Yeah, she introduces the movie to us, really.
The paper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad. As a 12-year-old, I like it when it's laid down on black and white.
Oh, it's very clear, yeah.
Maybe there's something to be said for that. Did you read the paper? Heed paper. No.
I love when he walks in there with the paper and then it cuts to the dad talking to Tony and he's talking about how like it was really mean. I just love where he's like, he's going to cry himself to sleep tonight on his huge pillow.
It's huge.
Hollering that gargantuan cranium about you. It's so funny.
We cut back into the kitchen where we reveal that the paper is the Weekly
Yeah.
World News.
But Paige,
Yes.
it has the 8th highest circulation in the
It has
world.
the 8th highest circulation in the world. This paper contains facts. Pregnant man gives birth. That's
a fact.
The world really hasn't changed much, has it?
No, it has not.
I mean, I was going to say modern day, yeah, because I wouldn't be as surprised to see that headline. But I remember in the 90s when that was a huge headline and like that person ended up on like multiple TV shows to talk about it and all kinds of stuff. It was like a huge thing.
Oh my God.
So this is where we get Mrs. X, the honeymoon murderer. And she marries people under fake identities, including a lounge singer, a Russian martial arts expert, and a plumber named Ralph Elliott. So she kind of lays out her suspicions and Mike Myers brushes it off.
Yeah, really just that the honeymoon murderer exists and it's, like a thing that we're going to have to deal with in the movie. It is Chekhov's honeymoon murderer, Paige.
It is Chekhov's honeymoon murderer. What we're missing in this scene is her flipping the page and being like, "Bat boy found."
Parents murdered in alley after opera. Bat boy found.
So They leave. The next scene is them leaving.
Fine, go. You've stayed your hour. This is the shot. I feel like the mom makes her paycheck in this movie because when she kisses Tony, that's already funny because she's like really into it, right?
Yes,
and then,
yes.
You're a sexy wee bastard, and like
You turned into a right sexy wee bastard, didn't you?
and then Mike Myers is like, yeah, I've always thought so, or whatever. And then if you just watch the scene and just watch her.
She is like a piece of meat.
Yeah, she's giving him the biggest fuck me eyes ever. It is so funny.
My favorite is the door closes. She goes back in the house, and then she like shakes it off for a second. She goes, oh, yes. We cut to Mike Myers is driving, and he drives past Meats of the World again.
Very dangerously.
Yes, that's what happens when you have a crush on a girl. You just stalk them.
Well, also, I think that's probably a one-way street.
Well, yeah, and he's not taking his eyes off her.
Yeah,
and drive. That is very dangerous.
This is the second time we hear "There She Goes." I believe.
It is. It is. You're right.
This is the second time we hear it. And just having driven in San Francisco, never take your eyes off the road.
No.
That place has the worst drivers on earth. We cut to Tony meeting with his police captain.
I love him so much.
And this scene is so great. We establish like so much about their relationship.
Yeah.
Where he's having doubts about being a cop because it's not like it is on TV. I fill out paperwork, which I feel like this thesis statement is the reason why Hot Fuzz got made, which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
So good. Yeah, it's my favorite of the Cornetto trilogy.
I would agree personally. I mean, I love Sean, but Hot Fuzz is so good.
I like Hot Fuzz a lot.
So I feel like we should do a bromance month and do Hot Fuzz and I Love You Man.
Fuck, Paige, that's a great idea.
Right?
Bromance movies, hell yeah.
Bromance month would be amazing.
Yeah.
So he's having doubts about being a cop. He's never chased a guy or hung on to that part of the helicopter.
I know that part.
I know that part.
I love the captain too because he's like, well, paperwork's a really important part of the job. It may be the most important part of what we do.
I love that he's like, you never come in here yelling at me about having to explain my antics to the commissioner. He's like, well, the truth is, I don't report to a commissioner. I report to a panel of
some are elected, some are appointed.
It's more of a quorum. Like he explains like the way he reports to it. It's so funny.
Bi-yearly basis. Yeah. And then as Tony kind of finishes, he's like, somebody needs a hug. We cut back to Meats of the World.
Yes.
And I imagine this is the same day. I think he drove past her on the way there and she was opening and then drives back past it. It's crazy busy inside.
I think he was waiting for her to be busy.
I think so too.
Yeah.
He comes in. She remembers that he bought the haggis because,
it's a haggis.
No one buys haggis. Yeah. She asks, do you actually like haggis? And he says, no, I think most Scottish cuisine is based on a dare, which is one of my favorite lines in this whole movie.
Yeah.
He offers to help her out in the butcher shop. And the guy behind him in line who's like, I'm next. He asks for a New York strip, 1/4 of an inch thick. And then she proceeds to cut him 1.5 inch thick steak.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what she was doing. But 1/4 of an inch is way too thin for a steak anyway.
If you watch that again, look at that guy because he looks like a Muppet. Like if in that shot,
yes.
shot, Mike Myers walks off to go help, like a Muppet, like bopped up next to him, I'd be like, that makes sense because he looks like he's on Sesame Street in that shot. I think it's so funny.
He tells her his dad used to be a butcher. He's going to help her out. And by helping her out, he's like goofing off around the butcher shop where he's like sexualizing the slicing of the bacon.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's sort of playing along too as she's like making the sausage or whatever. Yeah.
I bet her boss was horrified.
She doesn't have a boss. She owns the butcher shop.
Oh, does she own the butcher shop?
I got the impression that it was like a family butcher shop because she moved around a lot when she got married. But knowing what we know, I feel like she comes back and like helps run it when she is in the widow phase of her cycle.
He does alien chest burster with one. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
My favorite is when he's making mooing sounds in the back and then fighting a cow.
And then just the massage. Do you live in New York?
You guide
got a
me.
lot of tension.
You guide me. I remember saying that to people all the time when I was a kid.
My favorite is the school nurse one where he's got the like
where they're just pranking the customers.
Yes. But what I found out in my deep dive of research the other night was that there was actually an accident during the scene where Nancy, the woman who plays Harriet,
yeah,
sliced the tip of her finger off
Oh,
and was rushed to the hospital where they were able to reconnect it.
What?
there's actually a scene where she's wearing a Band-Aid on one of her fingers. Is that why?
That is why.
Oh my God, that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know, it's the scene where she's like talking about how vulnerable they are when they're sleeping, and she talks about putting something in his ear. Like that's the scene where if you look, she's got a Band-Aid. That's insane, Paige.
Mm-hmm. So they go on a date afterward where she says that he's nice.
Yeah.
And then she says, he's like, nice. Okay, nice.
You think of me as a woman friend.
Yes, which is kind of misogynist to say.
It's a little problematic, yeah.
But I think what he means is you see me as a friend and not a sexual object. But
right. Well, I mean, not someone you'd want to have sex with. Like that was him saying, "Don't put me in the friend zone."
I think he would be like, "So you like me or not?" But like also doing it in kind of a douchey way.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. And she says, "Name one bad thing you've done," and he's like, "What's one bad thing you've done?" And I mean, evil, like the fruits of the devil, and asks her, how many people have you brutally murdered? And this is where she says brutal is subjective.
That's a funny joke. I
think
like
so too. I think what she says is super appropriate for their banter back and forth, but he takes it like, oh, maybe she is a murderer. But if I was on it, like if that was Natalie and my first date and we were joking around like that, I'd be like, this chick is funny. She's continuing the bit.
Here's another thing that I thought about this time where, because we know that she didn't murder anybody.
Right.
Like, we know. But by marrying people, she has kind of signed their death certificate because she knows that that's what sets Rose off.
Yeah.
So I wondered if that was kind of her perspective of like, I mean, I didn't brutally murder them, but they got brutally murdered.
Oh, wait. Do you think that she knows Rose is killing them?
No, she didn't know.
I don't think so either.
I don't know. And I feel like the movie doesn't necessarily come down one way or the other. Every other time I'd watched the movie prior to this, I thought she knew.
Yeah.
And was kind of holding it against her.
It says she's scared people are going to leave her because her 3 ex-husbands have all left her, which is insanity that you don't find out that they're dead. But
you mean that she didn't? Yeah.
Well, but she's got all their stuff. That's the part that I was like, she's got their stuff. She seems suspicious that bad things have happened, and leaving sounds like a cover for them being murdered. So literally every other time I'd seen the movie prior to last night, I thought she knew and was just hoping that one of the times Rose was not going to do it.
that's a darker movie.
Very dark read.
It's a very dark movie. Well, this sounds terrible. When I reveal some stuff at the end in fun facts, that's probably the accurate read of the movie.
Oh, damn. Okay, cool.
Yeah. It made me frustrated with her because I was like, why didn't she warn him? Why didn't she tell the police? Why didn't she all of this? And then it wasn't until watching it through this time that I was like, oh, I don't know that she knows that Rose has been doing this.
Yeah, I get the impression that Rose would write those notes saying that they were leaving her, and she just assumed they left her.
Right.
And the breakup scene, I feel like it sort of informs that because she's like, at least you got out early, right? You didn't make me marry you only just to leave me, which...
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I think from her impression, it is that they're breaking up with her and leaving to live their own life, not that Rose has killed them.
Right.
Because that's what Rose is wanting her to believe. But anyway, I think to get back into the scene where we were in, I think that this is the most insane part of the movie, and that is that 2 uniformed Russian Navy soldiers are walking around San Francisco, and no one is wondering what's going on. Are they being slowly invaded? Is it like a Red Dawn situation where a Red Dawn happened and we lost?
They're near the pier.
Do you let naval officers from other countries just walk around?
Yeah.
It would not be uncommon for that.
Really?
I mean, there's a lot of military presence in San Francisco. It's weird that they're Russian.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked that a Navy officer was walking around, but the fact that they're Russian Navy officers concerns me.
Yeah. I mean, and
this is like the height of the Cold War.
well, no, 93, the Cold War is over, but...
Oh, yeah, that's right. Eagle Eye Cherry taught me that.
Yes, it did. So
that is such a niche joke. I'm so sorry. Mikey's very confused, but Paige, I love you right now.
I know that's a band.
I like me some Eagle Eye Cherry. So they walk from where they're at, the Palace of Fine Arts, but the sailors talk about her. She responds in Russian.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you speak Russian? And then he says, not only are you good looking and smart, but now I have to destroy you.
Yeah. And then she runs away. And then he does what I would do anytime someone called me over somewhere. And he would go, Nadia, I am coming. And he like ballet dances over to her. I did that a lot in middle school.
Oh, Todd, that makes me so sad for you.
Yeah.
Well, it leads into what for me personally, is one of the funniest lines in the movie, where she says, what do you look for in a woman you date? And he says, everyone says sense of humor, but I'm going to have to go with breast size.
It is pretty funny.
They go back to her apartment, which is crazy because all 90s apartments and movies look like Anthropology stores or an Urban Outfitters.
Also, it's huge.
So much stuff on the walls.
It's massive. I have notes on that money-wise.
Yeah. I mean, that butcher shop must make a shitload of money.
She does not have enough volume in that butcher shop or enough meats to sell to make the money she would need to live in that apartment. There's just no way. But we see that there's a giant poster of Atlantic City.
I have used that joke. You know what this apartment needs? A huge, and then insert whatever is big in that room. I have used that joke formula legit 1,000 times.
It's flawless.
It has never failed to get a laugh.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mike Myers.
There's also a martial art weapons display,
which I think she explains very poorly.
She does. She's like, oh, I had a friend.
It was a
who
friend.
was an expert. I thought it would look good on the wall. Like,
but that's your
why
first red
do you
flag.
have it? Yes, yeah.
Like, what person would think it would look good on a wall?
Your red flag is interior design choices, not that she clearly is talking about her ex-boyfriend she's
If I went to a girl's house and she's like, I put ninja stars all over this wall, I'd be like, oh.
I'd be like, marry that bitch.
Yeah.
I'm gonna marry this bitch.
Wait, it depends on how she put them in there. If they're stuck in the wall like she threw them, marry her. If they're hanging, she's insane.
Well, no, because then your question is like, oh, so do you martial arts? And she's like, no, I just thought they looked cool. And I was like, all right.
I'm in favor of this. I think martial arts weapons look really cool on walls. This is why I dated at least one other dude that had katanas. I'm not going to hear weird shit about it. We definitely have a samurai sword in our house right now.
All I heard was at least one other dude, and then I knew Jake was a sword collector. I knew it. I love it.
We keep the katana with the machete because those are our melee weapons.
Yeah, one is an outside sword and one is an inside sword. Do you guys know nothing about samurai culture?
Oh my gosh.
Both of them are zombie swords.
I got you.
I do love the Scottish martial art joke in this scene, the fuck you.
Fuck you.
I thought that was hilarious, and that it's mainly headbutting and kicking people when they're on the ground. I love that so much.
This is also, he looks at his watch, and this scene made me think, oh, she doesn't know Rose is doing it. She's afraid they're going to leave.
Yes.
Because this is where she's like, it's getting late. And he's like, not for me. For who then? Because she's basically like, are you looking to leave?
Yeah, she's giving him an out. And then she's like, well, I'll go make tea, because he's like, it's not late for me. I like the nightlife. I like to boogie.
I like the nightlife. I like to boogie.
Yeah. And then she goes and makes tea. And then he's like, you know what? It is getting late, and like, I know if we start kissing here, we'll kiss on the couch, and if we kiss on the couch, we'll kiss in the bedroom, and that's the part I always rush into, and I just don't think I should rush into spending the night with you. And then she goes,
I want to spend the night together.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah. So good.
Here's what I noticed this time around, and I'd be really curious to find out if Edgar Wright is a fan of this movie.
I bet he is.
Because there's a very similar scene to this in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Like, almost identical. It's got a couple extra jokes in it. It's a shorter, compacted version.
Yeah.
But it's almost beat for beat the same scene, which I think is kind of interesting.
Mikey, how many times have you had this sort of conversation with somebody? Is it more than once, less than 25 times?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so same. Because, and I think that's sort of how you should play it as a guy, because you don't want to
assume.
Yeah, you don't want to assume. I feel like it's a good backwards way to find out if there's consent there, right?
Yeah.
Because you're giving them a very clear, strong out.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're saying, hey, I don't want to rush into anything, especially if you don't want to rush into anything. So no pressure. I'd love to see you again. He makes that very clear.
I'm a very low pressure guy, so it's like, you know, like I don't want to rush things up, and I feel like I do kind of rush things on that level, and then that kind of screws it up. And then if they're like, well, I do want you to sleep, and then I crumple immediately.
Yeah, I fold like a cheap card table every time.
Yeah, like I could literally go through a 20-minute conversation. Like I really don't want to rush things, you know. Like maybe it's part of my commitment issues, but if I rush the physical, it could be, you know. And then like the next thing would be like, well, what if we sleep together today? I'll be like, I think we could pull it off.
Exactly, that's my point. It's very funny, but it's also like very true to like what I think a guy would do in that situation.
I'm just weak. I mean those words. I just am weak.
No, same, Mikey. Same. Best of intentions, none of the willpower when it comes to Natalie. Like I completely agree.
To be honest, Todd, you shouldn't have to resist Natalie.
Yeah, that's your girlfriend.
It'd be weirder if you were.
No, I mean like early on, like before we were like living together and like very committed, you know, like there was just no way I could ever tell Natalie no.
Well, my favorite thing is what she does next, which is what I would call enthusiastic consent, which is where she says, "You're it. Chase me," basically. Like, I'm in it. We're doing this.
Yes.
Which is the kind of consent you want, is enthusiastic consent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really do think the bit where he is running up the stairs, pants already down, is hilarious.
It is very, very funny.
I would have fallen back down the steps, but it is hilarious. Yeah.
Then we cut to later that night. This is the first time she's screaming about Ralph in her sleep.
Oh my God. Mikey, okay, Mikey, if that happened to you, how would you react?
Not well. I would probably be like, well, it's time for me to get out of here.
So in my mind, when I set you up for that joke, in my mind, what I thought you were going to say is, I wouldn't have been there to witness that because you'd already be home.
I mean, well, yeah, you're right. I stay for a few hours. I stay for like the initial, like, few hours of like sleep cuddle. And then I'm like, well,
time to hit the old dusty trail.
Macy's got to go out.
Macy's got an early meeting.
Yeah, Macy's got to go out. No, I would just be like, I stand on the shoulders of Ralph's work.
I thought it was awesome that she says, she's my friend.
Yeah, she's
and then Mike Myers is like, oh, she's your friend? She's your friend. and is trying to go back to sleep saying that in his head. Although I'm not at all surprised that she was screaming Ralph in her sleep in a very sexual way, because we already know, because we saw it in the scene with the mom, that Ralph could lay pipe.
Yes. Now we cut to the next morning, and Mike Myers' character Charlie comes down stairs pantsless.
Yeah.
Which, like, tidy whitey is not a good look.
I wrote that in my notes too. I was like, he is a man. He should not be in tidy whities.
Yeah.
Do people wear tidy whities a lot?
I don't think so. I remember growing up in them. And then when I was like 14, I was like, I need some boxers. My boys need a house.
I think it's a generational thing.
I think so too.
And I think boxer briefs weren't necessarily around, because I think people who would have worn tidy whities now wear boxer briefs.
Yeah. And whoever decided white was the appropriate color for underwear was not thinking through.
Black, dude. Well, I guess unless you want to wear white pants.
I guess that's true. But that's something that I don't typically deal with as a man.
No one should. White pants are just a bad idea.
Yeah. You ever shit your pants, Mikey?
I mean, yeah, I've shit my pants before, but I'm a guy.
Okay, I was not expecting you to say yes to that immediately, so that was awesome.
I think everyone has the secret I shit my pants a little bit story.
Mikey, I will say this. There are only two types of people in the world. Those who have shit their pants and those who will. Like it's gonna happen, guys. Oh my God.
He's downstairs walking around in his tidy whities, and he sees a figure in the shower upstairs.
Yeah.
He walks into the bathroom to surprise Harriet in the shower, but it's not Harriet, it's someone else.
It's someone who he thinks is Ralph, which I thought was funny.
That was very funny. He comes downstairs and she's on the couch. And he's like, "Hi, I'm Charlie. You must be Ralph." And she's like, "No, I'm her sister Rose, but she gave me a note for you." And then she just reads the note out loud to him.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
"Thanks for the hot dog.
Yeah.
My favorite is she's trying to get him to stay because she wants to talk to him, I think.
Yeah.
She says, what would you say to pancakes, fresh squeezed orange juice, and Kona coffee? And he's like, great. And then the next scene is him eating Fruit Loops. And she's like, I didn't have that other stuff.
He doesn't ever eat it, though. He just looks at it.
He just looks at it.
Yeah.
But this is where he kind of talks to Rose and finds out a little bit about her. And she says, she didn't speak of me. He says, well, she talked about a martial arts guy and Ralph. She says, she talked about them. And he said, well, she kind of screamed about Ralph. She says, well, you know Harriet. And he's like,
No, I don't.
No, I don't. and he's like, but you had sex with her. Hello. He then is like, I'm going to go now. And she says, I won't tell her anything happened. And he's like, nothing did happen. And she says, don't worry. Just be careful.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And her voice. Okay, so the actress who plays Rose is, I think, amazing.
She's so good at being creepy. She's creepy at a lot of stuff. She's so good.
In this scene, like, even her voice alone is creepy.
Her name is Amanda Plummer, and she does berserker mode better than like anybody else because she is the one in Pulp Fiction robbing the diner.
Yeah, she's so good.
But she has that great like, any one of you motherfuckers, and you're just like, ah. So good. So we cut to the next scene where he and Tony are on a boat out to Alcatraz.
When they take the police boat just to go on a tour of Alcatraz.
Yeah.
That, which is also insane. One of my favorite songs of the era comes on, and that's Two Princes by Spin Doctors.
Yes, yes. Well, and I remembered when we talked about this movie a couple weeks ago, and you said Two Princes, and I was like, no, it's the Bay City Rollers.
No,
and
I said Spin Doctors. You said Bay City Rollers. But we were both right, because, we were talking about two different iconic songs from this movie.
And I was like, oh my God, it is in this movie.
Yeah.
It is here.
Like, I honestly, in my mind, had forgotten There She Goes was in this movie, but I remembered where Spin Doctors was.
My favorite, so neither of you have been to Alcatraz, right?
No.
I have not. I wanted to go when I was in San Francisco last, but I couldn't.
There's a ferry to Alcatraz. And part of the reason there's a ferry is because it's real choppy. So, like, that police boat, they would have just been like vomiting off the sides of it. Like,
and they're standing in the front of it, arguably where you'd be dealing with that the most.
Yeah, there's also like not really a place to dock unless you're like on the ferry, like purposefully, like so people couldn't escape the island. It's like a whole thing.
Yeah. It's like the world's biggest moat.
Well, and what I think is funny is they walk up the hill with a whole group of people as if they took the ferry.
Well, yeah, you got to integrate yourself into a tour for free.
Well, so it's literally you sign up for the tours and stuff before you even get on the ferry.
Yeah.
Cause like that's it. Like you get off the ferry and you're on the tour.
That's the problem I had with it because I didn't realize you had to schedule that shit like a month and a half in advance. And I got there and was like, hey, let's go to Alcatraz. And we looked it up and we were like, oh, we should have done this conversation 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, depending on when you're there, like some parts of the year it's more busy than others. They don't have live guard tours now. Now it's like museum, like phony things. But back in the day, the old guards did used to give the tours.
Well, they had to stop that because of guards like Vicky. Shit got too real.
Shit got way too real, which we meet Vicky in the scene where my name is John Johnson, but everyone here calls me Vicky.
This scene just made me so sad.
I know.
Just Phil Hartman, man. Ugh.
He is such a good straight man. His two scenes, or really just the Alcatraz sort of vignette, if you will, is so good because of him.
Yes. So this scene is great because of Phil Hartman.
Yeah.
They go through the Alcatraz tour and he's kind of giving the tour as they're talking amongst themselves, where he tells Tony about Ralph. Who's Ralph? I don't know. And I don't want to know.
Yeah. He's more or less saying, hey, I met a girl. Things are going great. And I'm not going to mess it up like I always mess it up. You got to make sure I don't mess it up like I always mess it up. Right.
Right.
Now that's a conversation I've had before.
Mikey, I've been there for that conversation. And I do love that Tony's like, so did you guys sleep together? And he goes, hey, dirtbag. All you need to know is Harriet's a lovely, wonderful, caring person. And yes, we did. But that's when Vicky is like, circle up. Circle up.
This is my favorite part of the entire movie. I have it verbatim if you want.
Yeah, do it. Absolutely do it.
This is something the other tour guides won't tell you. In this particular cell block, Machine Gun Kelly had what we in the prison system call a bitch. And one night, in a jealous rage, he took a makeshift knife, or shiv, and cut out the bitch's eyes. And this is where they cut it and they're like, hey, you know the other thing about Harriet?
Dude,
that I
and then
love?
Tony going, oh, no. I love that. He like, because Tony knows that Vicky, oh my
Vicky
God.
don't play. Vicky don't play.
Vicky don't play. And then if you look at Phil Hartman just staring down Mike Myers, like, I can't believe you interrupted my Machine Gun Kelly story. It's so good. God, I miss Phil Hartman.
And if this wasn't enough retribution for Kelly, the next day he and 4 other inmates took turns pissing into the bitch's ocular cavities. This way to the cafeteria. But yes, this is where he asks, please, I'm really happy. Please don't let me screw this one up.
Yeah.
So we get a montage of more dates with Harriet and with him helping her out of the butcher shop a couple other times. And then we see Rose kind of involved, and it's kind of odd, but Charlie seems to be kind of like having fun with her and like making inroads.
Yeah, including her in on the joke. I mean, sort of like you would
Yeah.
with your girlfriend's sister, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
We cut to the Fog City Diner where he and Tony are on a double date.
Yes.
And they essentially are playing Would You Rather. And the first one is, what's worse? You're stuck at home with ESPN and it's just synchronized swimming, or you're stuck on the bridge in traffic and you've had 2 cups of coffee and 2 bran muffins. Hello.
Again with the hello. Yeah.
And then the next one is Harriet. She says, you go to your favorite restaurant, under the steak is a scabby Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And then the other girl, the like double date, is like, or being electrocuted. She's like, I was electrocuted once. It was horrible.
Oh my God.
So funny. They haggle over the check. Harriet picks it up. Did you think that neither of them wanted to pay it?
I thought it was insane that they were going back and forth. And then she was just like, well, I'll pay it. And they were like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I thought neither of them wanted to pay it. And they were like, perfect. Our plan worked.
Well, Harriet is low key rich as shit. If you've seen her place, you know.
It's raining. Harriet decides to walk in the rain. And it's like crazy. It's a low-key San Francisco normal day. It's crazy rain.
I remember like this scene as a kid, and I, for a long period of time, liked walking in the rain.
Aww.
It is insane how much this movie like impacted me as a child.
I also enjoy walking in the rain. I don't mind it. I think it's fun. Except in San Francisco where it gets like ass cold.
Yeah, well, some of this time when I was a kid, I remember doing this a lot. I was in Orlando, and the rain was like warm, and it felt great. Yeah.
But in this scene, he says, I'm really glad you're going to meet my parents. And she says, I feel really safe with you, like in old movies where people stayed together forever.
Forever. Like the Sandlot. And then you see like Mike Myers' face change to like, oh, I've made a terrible mistake.
They roll up to Charlie's parents' house. This is where we hear, I think in voiceover, where he says that his parents moved in the day they were married.
Yeah.
And in 2 weeks, they're having a 30th anniversary party, which gives us a bit of an age range for him that I thought was a little on the young side, because it means that he's probably younger than 30.
I would imagine he is, if they got married and they moved in on the same day and they've been there 30 years, just because most people didn't have kids before then.
Right. I always, watching this movie, thought he was early 30s.
I mean, he looks early 30s.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably because he was in real life.
Yeah.
So his mom is nice.
She's the best. Yeah.
Harriet accidentally does a martial arts move on his dad.
I love that. And the dad's like super into it on some level.
Yes. Charlie tells me you're a butcher. And he asks her if she links her own sausage, which is a thing.
Yeah.
That's a butcher thing. If you don't link your own sausages, you ain't shit. This is where Charlie's dad, he's making fun of Charlie for going to the bathroom or being like a wet blanket about something, and his mom says, you have a pickle up your ass again.
Yeah. Well, it's because they're like going to show Harriet family photos. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. I do love that he walks over and says, hey, are you going to be okay? I need to go to the bathroom or the washroom or whatever. And she goes, yeah, I'll be fine. He goes, yeah, apparently I have a pickle in my ass.
Yeah, I gotta go take care of that.
And I also think when he goes to the bathroom, there's a very funny joke where he closes the door and there's a dartboard and the queen is on the center of the dartboard with darts in her.
I had never noticed that until this time, and I have it in my notes this time too.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So great.
And his dad's pestering him in the bathroom.
Yes.
But this is where they put the paper in the bathroom and he's reading about the honeymoon killer again. He's kind of putting some pieces together.
Yeah.
He looks back out into the room and his mom is asking Harriet, have you always lived here? She says, no, I've moved around quite a bit.
Yeah.
Then we cut to them driving home, and she says, I had a really great time with your family tonight. And he's just like, great. And then he says, you know that martial arts expert friend you had? Was that here in San Francisco? And she says, no, it was Miami, which is where it was in the newspaper.
Right.
Oh.
And she says, your family's really great. And then he says, was that before or after Atlantic City? And she just says, I hated Atlantic City. It's full of gamblers and lounge singers. That guy was a lounge singer from the paper. Back at the apartment, she's screaming Ralph in her sleep again.
Okay, so a normal person would just show her the article and be like, this looks a lot like your life.
Yeah. At certain points was like, why isn't he? But then I was like, well, maybe he's afraid that she'll kill him.
I mean, I sort of would be too.
like
I
that
get
makes
that.
sense. Yeah.
I mean, I guess, but I mean, I would be like, this article sounds a lot like you, and it's kind of
Right.
freaking me out.
Yes. So he brings the article to Tony, and he's like, I think I'm dating Mrs. X. And he says 2 words, therapy.
Yeah. Well, because he is essentially the boy who cried wolf about this sort of shit, right? So,
Yes.
like, listen, stop looking for stuff. You asked me to call you out on this because you're really happy. Stop doing this.
You have unlocked a fun fact.
Oh,
So this movie in the original writing went through a couple different titles, and the one it settled on prior to Mike Myers taking over and rewriting the script was The Man Who Cried Wife.
Oh, damn. I love that title.
Oh.
That's
Now,
so great.
The original title that this was pitched under was Fatal Attraction, because they didn't know there was another movie called Fatal Attraction.
Oh, that's great. I love The Man Who Cried Wife. That's amazing.
The Man Who Cried Wife. Yeah. It's a pretty amazing title. So he breaks down the evidence, and Tony's like, you're just getting scared because you think she could be the one, and to you, marriage is death. The one fact we get out of the scene, the extra part, is that the lounge singer she married could sing the song Only You in 6 different languages.
Yeah.
And Tony is like, can she sing it? He's like, I don't know.
We haven't reached the all-important do you know the words to Only You phase of our relationship.
Right. He does humor him and look it up and say
Yeah.
that all 3 were reported missing, but so were their wives. And what I didn't notice until watching it this time is the like sergeant or whatever who's doing the lookup, who's
Yeah.
in like one other scene, is Lunel,
Yeah.
a super famous comedian who just wasn't famous at the time.
And she's done a bunch of other stuff since this, like more than just
Oh,
comedy
yeah.
stuff. Like she's been in a lot of stuff.
So he's at home watching A Current Affair and
Oh.
hearing about a rise in poisoning murders while doing the Thigh Master.
Okay, there's so many things about this that I love because there are like 8 jokes really quickly. My favorite
Right.
one is the story about they tease about the iguana
Yes.
be in pictures.
I wanna be in pictures.
Oh my God, that's so funny. And then, of course, when he's doing the Thigh Master and like reading the instructions on how to do it, that to me is funny. And you see him
man.
reading the instruction manual later when they get in bed, which
Yes,
is
like
also
he's still trying to
insane.
figure it out.
And then when it shoots off and goes behind the couch, so funny.
Have you ever tried a Thigh Master?
No.
Yes.
Oh, it's nearly impossible. It's the hardest thing in the world. You're just like, how do I do this? Like,
Oh, wait, it really is that difficult?
yes, it's
Oh
well,
my
'cause
God. Okay.
It's got tension on it.
Yeah.
And so you really have to be strong to get it to like open and close, but it's got like foam around it, so it's kind of slippery. So if you aren't like exactly positioned right, it will kind of shoot out the back or front of you. Yeah.
Well, then that's awesome. I didn't know that. I just thought he was being silly, but
No, it's the Thigh Master really kind of is a pain in the ass.
Literally.
She comes in with a health shake,
that she spent 20 minutes making.
which like, bitch, did you smooth it by hand? What's going on? And she's trying to get him to drink it. He won't do it. He goes into the closet, which has a glass door.
Well, because he just watched the thing on A Current Affair about poisoning, and he's
No,
afraid
for
that
sure.
she's poisoning him. Yeah.
I'm more worried about a house that has this many glass doors inside.
Yeah, because you can't throw stones at other people.
Well, it's purely for this gag.
Oh, yeah.
So she slams the door with him in the closet, and a whole extra closet's worth of stuff falls down.
Oh, like an impossible amount of stuff.
Yes. Like skis.
I do, I do remember saying like, she's got a lot of stuff in her closet. Like as a kid, I thought that was
Yes.
like both plausible and hilarious. And there's
Right.
no way that she had that
No.
much stuff above him in the closet.
Also, he'd be dead. He's going to
yeah.
suffocate in that closet.
Well, and I do love that they hold on the shot so he can open the door and just fall out. Because
Yes.
you see his legs like poke up out of the stuff as he falls out of it.
We cut to a little bit later. She gets into bed and she's like, I'm sorry.
This is the Band-Aid scene.
This is the Band-Aid scene.
Yeah.
And she's scratching his back in order of where things are on the map. So he's telling her parts of the city, and that's what she's scratching. Then he says Coit Tower, which his dick. But then he says San Andreas Fault, which would be the crack.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny. She says, I feel like I can tell you anything in the world. And then she says, have you ever stood on a cliff or a subway platform and thought, what if I pushed the person next to me? And he's like, no.
She immediately goes from, I feel like I can tell you anything, to confessing that she has thoughts of murdering people. Yeah.
We all do.
Yeah, Mikey, I know from the mental health professional on the podcast you're going to say that. But like, if a girl said that, what would your reaction be?
I'd be like, yeah, I'm like this close to killing a lot of people all the time.
All right, well.
I will say intrusive thoughts are normal.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that
they
is-
are.
that is
Yeah.
a normal thing. Now, she kind of spins it. She's like, but how many times do we trust people? I could do anything to you in your sleep. Like I could stick a needle in your ear, and he freaks out.
Yeah. She does stick her finger in his ear.
Yeah, and then she's like, I'm just trying to show you what a good relationship we have. And he's like, I have an ear thing. And she's like, well, fine, I'm just going to bed. And then he does this thing where he's like, human blanket, and then just like flops over on her, and she's just like, no.
Do you know how many times I did that as a kid?
Human blanketed people?
The human blanket bit is something I did until late teens.
Yeah, it must be nice to be super skinny, Todd. I killed 2 women.
Oh my God.
So, but now when I do it, it's like for people with anxiety disorders, I'm like, weighted blanket.
Oh my God. That's a banger of a joke, Mikey.
This is really great. The next scene, he goes to the SF Globe, which is a newspaper, and he's placing the announcement for his parents' anniversary.
Yes.
I love this scene, though.
Oh my God. We got a guy from Cheers and a guy from Seinfeld just
Together.
acting circles around everyone else in this movie. It's so good.
Yeah, well, also with my job and stuff, like I see a lot of like bad stuff, and I make jokes.
It is
sometimes.
gallows humor, right? And I
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if some people heard it, some people could get really offensive about some of
Offended.
them. Offended, yeah, yes, true, and they would say I'm offensive.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's like I get it. I'm a bad person.
Well, what he overhears is them cracking jokes about the obituaries, and one of them is Ralph Elliott,
Yeah.
whose body was found in a sewer. And he's like, well, did they say anything about his wife? And they're like, no, I'm sorry. I'll stop telling the jokes. Like,
Yeah, I'll stop making jokes about it. I'm sorry.
You're right. You're right. It's a whole person. You know, it's just what I do for a living. I've like had this conversation.
I love how this scene ends, and it's like the guy from Cheers saying, well, after Kramer like leaves, like yelling, look at the insensitive man. Everyone stop what you're doing and look at the insensitive man. That's what you're paying you for. Like, I love that part. And then the Cheers guy looks at Mike Myers dead on and says, he was my ride home. And then Mike Myers goes, understood. And what should have happened is we see a tag on that scene with Mike Myers driving that dude home.
I thought that too.
That would have been so funny.
That would have been a great joke.
And him trying to tell the story to him, like, do you think I'm being crazy? Like,
And then him going, this is my stop.
Yeah.
Getting out, going home. Yeah, that would have been so funny. Anyway, sorry. Paige, please continue.
we cut to Golden Gate Park, where Harriet is meeting up with Charlie, and she basically says, what's going on? They had to see me so urgently. And he says, he basically breaks up with her. He's like, I think you're
Yeah.
terrific, but we should see other people. And he says, I'm afraid you're going to leave me, so I'm launching a preemptive strike. And this is where we get her line of, at least you left early on.
Yeah. This is what I call a prejection, where where he rejects her before she can reject him.
Because he's in
Yeah.
love with the Tupac hologram. Yes, a projection.
Yeah.
He's like, listen, I'm banking on that hologram technology, and if I can just create my dream woman, I mean, why do I need you?
I watched Juice the other day, and I was really feeling it. And you know what?
I did think it was super mean that he broke up with her in front of the Tanner residence.
Yeah, and the painted ladies, as they are called.
Yeah.
And then she had to go back to work for the rest of the day. Like, if you're going to break up with somebody, do it at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. That's when you fire somebody, too, at the end of their
Yeah.
shift. I think she does a great job in this scene acting because she tries to play it tough. And, like, she's like, whatever, I'll be fine. It's not a big deal. And then when she says go back to work, you can see it, like, really affect her. I think she's a great actress.
I think she's really good in this. And one of the articles I read actually really mentioned it, where they were like, she has the tougher job in this movie.
Yeah.
Where he gets to be kind of crazy and wild, and she has to communicate all of the same things from a place of normalcy. She doesn't have the wackiness.
Yeah.
And she does a great job of it. I think she's really good in
I
this
think she
movie.
nails it. Yeah.
So we cut to another scene where he's writing a poem about her. And then we see him perform it at the coffee shop.
Oh, yeah.
This is where I have in my notes, does he only do poetry when he breaks up with people? Like, is he the Adele of the poetry world?
Yeah.
I have a message to the podcast from my mom.
Yes.
She listened to last week's episode and she has some corrections.
My sister texted me. She was like, it doesn't count till they're married? Question mark. Wow face. Wow face.
She would like me to report that everything I said was untrue. And
I do feel like firmly this is a rewriting of history, but I'll allow it.
I think I'm going to have to go ahead and she had some pretty strong points. So I would like to apologize for misconstruing what my mother said.
Mikey, you sound like a hostage right now.
She's holding up cue cards just out of the Zoom frame. I did not say that. I said that it doesn't matter until carriage because of the carriages.
You just misheard me.
My whole family got together, did Halloween stuff Friday night. And then, like, out of the blue, she's like, we need to talk about your podcast.
Oh, my God. That's amazing.
Because we were, like, sitting down. She's like, so I need to talk to you about something. What you said I said was not true. I was like, oh, God.
First of all, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years.
All right, please continue. I'm sorry.
And that I'm sorry was for his mom, not for you, Paige.
Everyone, every woman in my life.
So he's the Adele or the Taylor Swift of poetry.
Yeah. When he grabs the candle and like is going to go to blow it out like before and then looks back at the picture of Harriet and then puts it down.
Yes.
Like 11-year-old me was like, oh, he still loves her.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember thinking that was like the sweetest thing in the world. And now, I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Like, I know, like, whatever. But I remember thinking that was the sweetest thing ever.
Yes, he broke up with her. You can't keep that candle lit if you broke up with them.
I agree, Mikey. I'm just saying 11-year-old me was super here for it.
Hello.
Oh, my God.
So we cut to his apartment. This is the only time we see his apartment. We only see a section of it.
Yeah.
And he has a corner view of the city skyline.
It's a beautiful skyline.
He gets a phone call.
From Tony, yeah.
Yeah, from Tony that says that somebody turned themselves in for the murder of Ralph Elliott. And so he runs out of the house. He goes directly to Harriet's house to apologize.
Yeah.
Rose comes in behind him, scares the shit out of him.
I thought that was so funny.
And he says, I don't want to lose you. She says, you rejected me. And he's like, well, I'm unrejecting you.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, you'll do it again. I'm not going to do it again. He says, I got scared. Things were going good and I got scared. I love you. And she says, I love you too, but you blew it.
Yeah.
And we cut to the next scene where he's got the band.
He got the band back together, baby.
And he's doing a poem to her on like a rooftop courtyard outside her apartment.
Right.
Which, of course, she has a rooftop courtyard.
Yeah, he broke onto her balcony with the band. Like, there's no way to that courtyard that's not fully through her apartment.
There is, because you can see the apartment across from it and the people walking behind. And the only reason I knew this is because I knew it when I was looking for apartments that looked like hers to try and find it.
So he bribed her neighbor into their access.
Yes.
That's amazing.
You'll notice when he's doing this poem, he's got the book.
Yeah.
I think it's because of the previous poetry tapings that took 14 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Because he couldn't get words. He's got the book to read them. It could be. I don't know if that's for sure. But he ends the poem with, I am lonely.
Bum, bum.
It's really hard. This poem sucks.
And he's right.
Then we cut to inside her apartment where she has a crazy pedestal jacuzzi bathtub.
Yeah. That's an insane bathtub. But it's also insane to say, no, you blew it, and then immediately say, you know what, you wrote me a shitty poem. We're back on.
But you admitted it was shitty, and that's why.
But yeah, I mean, I'm fully here for, together hot tub sessions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but she has that just in her house.
Hello. She's a fan. She is a fan. If I could have one in my house, I would.
Yeah, but it would be my entire apartment, like that one room.
Oh, yes. So Rose tells her someone's downstairs to see her.
When he pulls the shower head over and goes, well, she'll be done in a moment. I thought that was so funny as a kid.
It was. It's still funny.
It's still pretty
as
funny.
a kid. Yeah. Pull the car around.
So he comes downstairs in a towel, which is weird. I would have put clothes on first. Yeah. But so she introduces him to a woman named Ralph. And he says, it's great to meet you. He hugs her. The towel falls.
I'm naked, aren't I?
I'm naked, aren't I?
Insane.
Yeah, we cut to the next scene at a bar called Cock of the North.
I wrote that down too. I thought that was an insane name for a restaurant. It's not just a bar.
Yeah.
Like, this is where they're having their 30th anniversary party.
dinner, yes.
Yeah. At Cock of the North.
His dad gets up to give a toast, which is like equal parts sweet and really troubling.
Yeah.
And because he basically, I'd like to propose a toast to my wife, May. 30 years ago today, we were married. We said I do and haven't agreed on a single thing since, but it could be worse and I still love you.
Yeah.
And she just goes, thank you. Like, that's her only reply to it.
But she's already moving on in her mind to Tony, who is sitting next to her at this dinner already.
But also one of the other fancy old ladies tries to dance with Tony. Like all of her friends are trying to dance with Tony.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yo, the silver hairs think Tony can get it.
They've seen him autograph those urine samples and they're here for it. As the party's going on, Mike Myers' character seems to have kind of a revelation of like, I want 30 years with somebody. I want to be in this position 30 years from now.
And he no longer thinks she's the honeymoon killer. So he's like,
right.
I love Harriet. Why not get married?
Yeah. And she says no. And he just goes, please?
Yeah.
I know. I was like, oh.
I do love this scene, though, because we know why she's saying no.
Yes.
And I feel like she does a great job of like showing it on her face that she does love him, but she doesn't want him to die, right?
Right. Well, and here in the reading where she knows Rose is going to kill him, it makes sense that she's like, no, because that's what'll kill him. But in the reading where maybe she's just afraid that he'll leave, I think she's playing it a little too strong.
Well, I think she's playing it that way because she's afraid to leave, because she eventually does say yes. Like, I think if she knew he was going to die, she would have just held to the no. Why don't we just live together part, right?
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of problems if she knows that the sister's killing people. But mainly the fact that at the end, she would be arrested as an accessory to
Yeah,
murder.
she would be complicit in 3 people's murders.
When we get to fun facts, there are going to be some script revelations that will
Oh my
shock you.
God.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah. She does eventually say yes. We cut to their wedding, where she pauses before saying I do. Also, her wedding dress is nuts.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't notice.
Me either.
I'd never noticed before. Her wedding dress, so her veil is part of her dress.
She's wearing a hoodie?
Yes.
That's amazing.
When she pulls the veil down, it's like a cowl on the back of her dress, but that's her veil. It's very strange.
She gets married dressed like the assassins from Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this is her 4th marriage. She's just like want to try something new.
Yeah.
That's true. I guess, she's had 4 tries and she's just like, yeah, give me the weird shit.
I hear Dress Barn gives you a discount if you buy in bulk. So maybe this is just the one that was left.
Dress Barn doesn't usually carry wedding dresses, but if
I
they
don't
did.
I think Mike Myers' wedding dress is much better than hers.
Oh, yeah, his kilt.
I love that they're wearing kilts. I loved it.
Yeah. I love that his dad sings along to a bagpipe rendition of If You Want My Body by Rod Stewart. And it's because Rod Stewart is Scottish. I love that during this scene, the mom is just straight up molesting Tony.
Yeah, she's got 2 hands full of ham and she is not letting go.
Well, and kilts are, you're feeling the breeze. There's no underwear under there.
Yeah, there's no underwear on those things.
It's very easy to leave a urine sample in a kilt. That's all I'm saying.
A piper collapses. We cut to Tony and Charlie are at the bar. And Tony is basically saying the wedding was beautiful. She's great. How could you think she was a murderer? And then she gets up and she sings Only You. And they share a look like, what? Nah.
And then she changes languages.
Mm-hmm. And Tony is suspicious.
Yeah. Well, and then she calls him up. And I love when she like pulls his face and then she's like squeezing the shit out of his face. I thought that was so funny.
My favorite is we get a reverse shot of the crowd and the mom is like mascara running, like sobbing. So on the drive to Poet's Corner, so we cut to, they're driving to their honeymoon. She's really quiet in the car.
Yeah.
And he's kind of trying to like crack jokes. And he says, "You're the best husband I've ever had." And she's like, "Why would you say that?" And he's like, "It's a joke." The car almost crashes. As they're driving, the captain bursts into Tony's office. And this is where we get full Lethal Weapon.
I love this.
Tired of your shit,
much.
Paisan. Just like ridiculous.
And then Tony like leaves and comes back and he's like, well, because the captain says like, your friend's in danger. Like you messed up. You got to go save your friend or whatever. So he like runs out and then comes back and is like, "Hey man, that was awesome."
Yeah, you did a great job.
I love that. He was like, "I'd love to give you more notes later, but I got to go."
I love how the captain was like, was it too much racial stuff?
He's really thinking about it. He's like touching his face. He's like, "I don't know if that was too much." And he goes, "Yeah, but it's Paisan, not Paisan."
That's actually the later one because he does it twice.
That's right. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
So they are driving to Poet's Corner, which is allegedly in the mountains kind of above San Francisco.
It's a real place, though, I think.
It's, well, yes and no. It's not.
Okay. Is it not called Poet's Corner, but it's actually like a place you can go stay or something?
Sort of. I have notes about it when we get there.
Oh, okay. I'll leave it alone.
Yeah. So he faxes pictures of Harriet from the wedding to other people who knew all the other dead people.
Yeah, he does like police work for once.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like decent police work.
Yeah.
They all confirm that it's her, that it's the person that their friend married.
The lounge singer guy who confirms that that's Harriet says, yeah, she put on a lot of weight.
Which she's not heavy.
So skinny. Like, there's no way she put on a lot of weight. I thought that was insane. I was like, did they cast someone else?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, is Rebel Wilson, like, originally in this script? Like, I just did not see how she could have gained a lot of weight.
I can tell you who they were originally going to cast, and it was going to be wild. But I'll tell you later. So
we have not unlocked that fun fact yet, Mikey.
You have not unlocked that fun fact.
Todd, let's get to the movie. I need to hear these fun facts.
I know.
So they arrive at Poet's Corner, which is actually the Dunsmuir estate in Oakland, where I had my senior banquet. So the pictures of me in that green dress are just on the lawn just off of the main estate.
No shit.
But I didn't know that that's where it was until I was like reading stuff last night and I was like, oh my God, that's where they filmed that? So it is at the Dunsmuir estate, but it's modeled after the place where Jake and I got married.
Aww.
Where they've got kind of like themed rooms, which by the way, I'll get to it in just oh no, they're checking in here. So they have themed rooms. They ask specifically for the Robbie Burns room, who's a Scottish poet. So it's like the rooms are themed like poets.
Well, and Harriet says she has a headache. So she needs to go get do you have a drugstore in the hotel? And he's like, yeah, it's over there. And the guy at the counter looks at Mike Myers as she walks off and goes, do you really think she has a headache?
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
They also tell them to prepare candles because they tend to lose power during storms.
Yeah. And Mike Myers is super jazzed because he has no idea what's in store for him. He's like, oh, that sounds like fun. Which
hooray,
is insane.
cuddles.
But yeah.
We cut back to the police station where we find out that all the circuits are down because of the storm and the roads are blocked because of the storm as well.
Yeah.
So this is where the captain tries it out again to be mean and he tries to call him Paisan. He's like, it's Paisan. Is it too much with the ethnic slurs?
I love the captain so much.
So he charters a plane and the guy flying the plane is nuts where he's like, I don't know. I have no concept of time. I don't know if this is dangerous. I've never done this at night. It's really crazy.
He's like, you've done this before, right? And he goes, yeah, I've done it loads of times. Never at night.
Never at night. We cut back to the hotel room where we see Harriet pull all 3 wedding rings out of her makeup powder.
Yeah.
There are some scenes in this that are clearly left over from the original, and that I think is one of them.
Well, Natalie had never seen it before, so it was the first time she had watched it, and she, until like Rose is revealed as the killer, she thought that Harriet was the killer, and she was like, "Oh my god!" And she thought that they were revealing that Harriet was the killer right here.
Maybe they were? ? They go downstairs for dinner. He says, "I'm gonna go wash my hands. I love you," and she's like following him.
Yeah.
To wash his hands. They come back to the table. They announce anniversaries. They announce them as newlyweds, and then he gets an urgent phone call from town. And it's from Tony basically saying, Harriet is Mrs. X. I have the picture. She's the murderer.
Yeah.
The police are on their way, but you need to stay where you are. And he says, what should I do? And the guy behind him just says, you'll know when the time comes, which is a great, just like throwaway joke.
Yeah,
it's funny.
So good. Yeah.
And the phone line goes dead because a tree falls across the lines.
Yeah.
But they're playing their song. They have to stay and dance. And he's literally just trying to avoid her at all costs. And
I love this so much because as they're dancing, like the power goes out and he goes, help me, my wife is and the power comes back on. And he goes, a lovely person who I'm very lucky to be with. I know, it was so funny.
They, in the midst of this, we cut back to town where Tony's trying to commandeer a vehicle, and the guy's like, no.
No, I happen to know for a fact you can't commandeer my vehicle.
And it's the dad from Beethoven.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And I think the pilot is also someone who's like sort of famous as well.
Yeah. We cut back to the hotel where they're putting them in the honeymoon chair and then to the room.
Yeah, they're like forcing them to go have sex, which I thought was weird.
Very.
But I'm fine with, yeah.
He tries to get the bellhop to stay for a nightcap.
Stay for a nightcap!
He
I love
runs
that.
away.
Yeah.
Then we cut back into the room where there's a log and an axe in the room.
Why?
So at the place where Jake and I got married, all the rooms are themed, and so some of them are like the frontier room, or we stayed in the Daisy May, which was like a cave. So it was literally a cave.
Yeah.
So some of them have weird stuff like that in the room. But the other thing I think is because they lose power, they have a fireplace in that room. So I think maybe they'd want you to split that log, but it's crazy.
I mean, yeah, that is nuts. I would be pissed if I was paying for like a room for the night and they were like, hey, we didn't go through the extra step of cutting this fully for you, but here's a half cut log for you to then cut yourself.
It makes more sense to me for it to be a theme room with a fake axe, but it's, as we find out, this axe is very real.
Yeah, like that one whole piece is more like a plastic mold of like
yes.
That would be hilarious.
She turns to him and says, Charlie, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. I've been married before. And he says, I already know that. And then she basically, like, instead of just telling him like, I'm afraid you'll leave me, please don't, she basically says, you don't understand, and she's trying to stop him from going. And
yeah, he shoves her into the closet.
She should have told him she was married before.
Before this. Absolutely. We cut back to Tony is in the car with the guy he tried to commandeer, who is now driving him to Poet's Corner,
giving him a ride. I loved that.
Oh,
yeah,
so funny.
And he's like wrapping his fingers on the dashboard. He's like, oh, is that bothering you? He's like, no. That's my favorite thing ever. I love that dude's delivery. It's so good.
So Charlie is now in the main portion of the honeymoon suite where he finds a note that was allegedly written from him to Harriet.
Yeah.
And we reveal that Rose is right behind him.
With the axe.
Yes.
And a Dexter-esque plastic sheet outfit.
She came prepared. And this is where she steals every scene from here on out. She's so great at being crazy. It's so good. So they fight. He climbs out the window onto the roof. Now, this is actually a fake roof that they built as a replica for the movie so that they could run around on it. And
I mean, that makes sense because they are doing some what would be dangerous things up there.
So Tony makes it. He kicks in the door. Harriet calls her over. He gets her out of the closet and puts her in handcuffs.
I love this.
Even though they can hear Charlie and Rose fighting on the roof. Charlie's running away from Rose. He falls. He's hanging onto the edge of the roof. She's like chopping at his hands with the axe.
Well, and that's when they pause and they cut to Tony like questioning Harriet. And like while they're going back and forth, Harriet's like, you can hear them. They're on the roof. And he's just like smoking a cigarette like, you just don't get it. And you hear, ah!
And he's like, you could tell me here, or we could talk about it downtown.
Downtown.
God, it's so funny. It's so funny.
The axe gets stuck. He uses it as a chance to pull himself back up onto the roof. She throws the axe. He falls, hits a chimney pipe.
Well, he racks himself on it. Yeah.
Yeah. They lead Harriet outside in handcuffs, and he calls down from the roof. Rose is behind him. They struggle with the axe. She kicks him in the balls. He kicks her in the crotch.
And then looks right at the camera.
Yes.
And is like has a little smile. I was like, oh, this is definitely a kid's movie.
Yeah. She falls off the roof and he catches her. He tries to hold on to her, and then Tony pulls her in through that top window. Basically, that's the end of the fight. We cut to him reciting a sweet bird poem about Harriet.
Yeah. As they're like showing her being taken away in the car.
Right. And this is where we get the third or fourth, depending, instance of There She Goes Again.
Yeah.
And that's the movie.
Yeah.
Roll credits.
All right. So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what do you guys think?
I still really like this movie.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I will agree, Paige, that there are some things that are not great. They didn't hold up great well to the test of time. But I still think this is a great kids movie.
It's a kids movie with some very adult themes in it.
Yeah, it's like Animaniacs. I'll grant that. Yeah,
I will say I think I saw this as a kid. Like I'm
Me
pretty
too.
sure my parents showed it to me as a kid.
I think it's a movie for adults that their kids can watch with them.
I would agree. Yeah,
but I love it. I'd watch it again in a heartbeat. It's so good. So Paige, do you have some fun facts for us?
I have so many fun facts.
I can't wait.
I'm so excited.
So let's start out with, what is Mike Myers' job?
Yes.
And in order to fill you in, I have to take you on the journey that I went on to find it.
Oh my God.
This film is adapted from a script originally written by a man named Robbie Fox. And it was originally, at the time that it was sold as a script, called The Man Who Cried Wife.
Such a great title.
It was pitched under other titles, but when it was finally sold, that's what it was. The script at the time, and this is in 1988, was set in New York. And the original version has Charlie as more of a Woody Allen character. Woody Allen was actually at various points cast to be the lead or tapped to direct it, but he wanted too much money both times, so it fell through.
It is sort of like Annie Hall if Annie Hall was a murderer.
That is the pitch for this movie originally.
Right?
Except in the original version, Harriet was the murderer.
Oh,
Rose did not
makes
exist.
So much sense. Yeah. Okay.
So she was the real axe murderer.
She was the real axe murderer, and it was kind of a more misogynist version even than what we have now. In interviews, Fox has said that he and a friend came up with the idea as they were commiserating about the problems that they had with women. Yeah.
Oh, that's not great. Oh, man.
It's not great. He's softened a bit over time, but he named the character of Charlie after his own father, a man named Charles Fox, who was a famous songwriter. He co-wrote the Roberta Flack classic Killing Me Softly with his song, covered fantastically by Lauryn Hill. Yes. And he wrote almost every theme song from the 70s, like TV theme songs, so many famous ones. But in the midst of all that, his dad was also a super doomsday prepper and a conspiracy theorist.
So he's like everyone's parents.
Well, it's not the parents. He named Charlie because in the original script, there were no parents at all. And Charlie was the one who was paranoid and nervous. Essentially, he was like a Woody Allen character. He was like a paranoid Jewish guy in New York.
Yeah.
And so the screenplay, as I mentioned, it was pitched originally in 1986 under the title Fatal Attraction because they didn't know that there was another one. It went through 3 other titles before finally being sold under the title we have it now. And it sat in development hell for 5 years.
Wow.
It underwent about 12 different but pretty small revisions based on who was going to be in the movie, which in order was Woody Allen first, Gary Shandling, Albert Brooks, and then eventually Chevy Chase, who then pulled out, and then finally Mike Myers.
Wow. I love all of those people at that time period. Gary Shandling.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Gary
amazing.
Shandling.
He doesn't really do a lot of the stuff like that.
He doesn't. And literally all the way up to attempting to cast Chevy Chase, the production company was trying to keep with the idea that Charlie was paranoid and Jewish. Literally Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Gary Shandling being pulled from the production caused one of the producers to leave Columbia permanently. To
Really?
leave his job. He thought he was so right for the role that he was like, if you're not going to have him, I'm leaving.
Gary Shandling, he's passed away, but Gary Shandling was awesome.
Yeah. Here's the question. What changed to change this movie that much? Well, in 1992, Wayne's World was released and it was a huge hit. And everyone wanted to offer Mike Myers parts. And at the same time, because remember, Wayne's World 2 and this movie were filmed in the same year. Now, Mike Myers, because he had come from SNL and because he had essentially helped write Wayne's World and had a level of control on that movie because it was based on his characters, and he had developed those characters, he had kind of an expectation of the level of control he would have on this movie. So he and his writing partner agreed to take the role on the option that they could rewrite the script as they chose.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, okay.
Man, that's a big ask.
It's a big ask, but he and his writing partner rewrote huge sections of the script. They changed the ending. They added the characters of his parents and of Rose. They made them Scottish instead of Jewish, and they moved everything to San Francisco because they thought it would be more conducive to a poet's lifestyle.
Yeah, poets. I've never heard of one poet from New York.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if poet was in every iteration of the script. I think it was, but I think it was just a side gig. But because they made all these changes, they managed to lose some of the scenes that displayed Charlie's actual job from the original script, which was he owns a bookstore.
What?
Really?
Now, how do I know this? Because they sought full writing credit for their edit of the script. They made so many changes that they sought to have the original screenwriter taken off the movie as the screenwriting credit and to give him a story by credit. And that screenwriter had done every previous rewrite of the script, had been working on it for 5 years. And so he was like, fuck you. Fuck you to death. We're going to court.
Oh, really?
Yes. He takes them to court. He fights it. And he wins.
Good for him.
Yeah, despite the near full rewrite of this movie, he has the only writing credit on the film. And at the time, he was pretty fucking salty about it. So in 1993, he gave a scathing interview to the LA Times as the movie was being released. And that article is still online. And in it, he describes the movie. But because it hadn't come out yet and he hadn't seen the final product, he left in one detail from the original script, and it was that Charlie owns a bookstore.
That's amazing that you got there through that insane legal battle.
That's so awesome.
That's a fun fact right there, guys.
Thank you. If you want to hear more about it, there's a lot of really good oral histories on this movie online. Spin.com did one. The LA Times did one. There's an article called How So I Married an Axe Murderer Destroyed One Writer's Life. It was a contentious movie. But yes, so he owns a bookstore. That's what it is.
That's amazing.
We never see it or hear about it in the movie. So back to just normal run-of-the-mill fun facts that aren't rabbit holes. Harriet was almost played by Sharon Stone, but Sharon Stone wanted to play both Harriet and Rose because she thought it would be cool if they were twins, but they cast Nancy Travis instead because they were like, that's not what it is.
I think I'd be down for that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, they cast Nancy, who was the girlfriend of one of the producers at the time because they were running out of time to make the movie, and she ends up marrying that producer, and they're still married to this day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was kind of a sweet one.
That's awesome.
So let's look at their apartment costs.
Yes.
So assuming, because we don't see the rest of his apartment, if we assume that he has a studio, bare minimum.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't. But if we assume he has a studio with that view, the apartment would start at $2,500 a month for a studio.
Yeah.
And that does not necessarily include a kitchen. It may include a kitchenette. If he doesn't have a studio, if he's got something larger with that view, he's looking at $3,500 minimum, pretty much.
That's insane. Although this is the heyday of bookstores. Like, it never got better than this for bookstores.
Well, and because I can't find classic stuff, I'm looking at just like modern day costs, and let's
Yeah.
just
Right.
assume that everything took place modern day. That's what it would cost. Now, Harriet's minimum of a 3-bedroom apartment would cost at least $4,500 per month.
Yeah.
And that's on the low end.
That's insane.
It was likely closer to $6,000 a month.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
She would have had to have had one of the most successful butcher shops in San Francisco
In history.
in history. She can't physically make the volume to support that overhead with the amount of meat that she has. With her and Charlie both owning businesses, maybe they could afford it together, but coronavirus would have really dealt them a pretty solid blow
Yeah.
if this was happening present day. So yeah, that is the rest of my fun facts, because we basically peppered everything else in throughout the way.
Uh-huh. Well, thank you for your fun facts.
Those
Thank
were
you.
insanely
Those are
fun.
really fun.
Yeah. All right. So would you date the main characters?
No. I mean, if I had to hear hello every time a joke was made, that's going to impact my life so negatively.
This movie gave me such a revelation as to why it was hard for me to find women to date me in high school.
I feel that really hard, Todd. I really do. I
Oh.
understand.
I need to apologize to Lauren, Lisa, Leslie, all of them L's. That's weird. Yeah, all of you guys. So sorry.
I'm trying to think if I would date Harriet.
Yeah, so okay, Mikey,
yeah.
that was my question for us is if we married Harriet and her sister tried to kill us, would we stay with Harriet?
I was thinking about that too.
Yeah,
I would stay with her.
I think I would too. I like Harriet. I think she's great.
I think I'd be more mad that she didn't tell me she was married 3 times before.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, right?
Here's what I kept thinking about when I was thinking about, are they still together? Rose is alive. She's going to prison. She is still her sister.
Yeah.
I just pictured them like going to visit her in prison and having to go through the trial and having to go
Ooh.
through all of that. And I was like, I don't know if they stay together.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a different question. Like, do you still think they're together? I hope they are.
I hope they
so.
are. I would have to see Harriet's reaction to Rose because she loved all those guys.
Yeah.
She might stop being a supportive sister once she figured out that.
Hopefully.
I think if she stops being a supported sister, she saves her relationship with Charlie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. Yeah, yeah.
And I think it'd be fair to Charlie to be like, yeah, it's kind of her or me because
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's an ultimatum, but like she tried to murder me and murdered 3 people before. So
Yeah.
She's literally a serial killer.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is an ultimatum. There you go.
Yeah. The thing that I really like about this movie is it gives Harriet a chance to be kind of a comedic equal in a lot of ways in their conversations. And I feel like they do really have, they develop a nice relationship. They
I
have
agree.
a connection. And so I think if they can get past the fact that her sister tried to murder him and, you know, not talk about it at Thanksgiving, then yeah, I think they could stay together. I think it's possible.
Yeah, I think so too. That's the reality I want to live in.
Yeah, agreed.
I like that this movie is the one where you guys are like, yeah, they're definitely still together.
I mean, I'll admit it's a long shot.
There was 3 actual murders and an attempted murder, and this is the most realistic. I think they would work out.
I feel like if you told me they didn't work out, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
I mean,
Also.
yeah, same. I just hope they do, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's also because they are essentially good people that have a bad thing happen to them. Like one of them is not the villain, if that makes sense. And that's the reason we want them to be together.
Right.
Both do things like they both just talked about it.
Now, here's what I don't know about the original script, which I'm kind of curious about.
I know there's a screenwriter out there that's dying to tell you everything about
Oh,
it.
I'm sure. This is going to come out. We're going to get an email and he's going to be like, let me tell you. So one of the things that they had described and one of the other like log lines they kind of gave for the movie is she's the perfect wife, but she's a serial killer. So basically being like, she's amazing. She just kills people. I think it'd be really, really, really interesting to have it be Dexter style where it's like they meet, they fall in love. She's perfect. He, you know, has the same commitment issues because he always finds a reason to break up with somebody. And then he finds out that she's a serial killer and she just kills other people.
Romantic comedy Dexter, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Right?
That would be amazing.
Because now it's like, do you put up with, like, is that okay with you? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Yeah. I think that would be a really interesting kind of take on the same, kind of a similar idea.
All right. So you guys ready to talk box office?
Yes.
All right. So this movie came out in 93. What do you think the budget for this movie was?
I wasn't able to find the budget. I do have what it made in its entire run.
Yeah.
I think the budget was around $20 million.
I would say like 12.
The budget was exactly $20 million.
Ah.
When it came out on July 30th, 1993, it was 12th at the box office.
Ooh, what was ahead of it?
Oh, I'm going to run through this list page, and it is a bunch of hits. All right. So the number one movie that week was Rising Sun.
Okay.
Number 2 was In the Line of Fire. 3 was The Firm. Free Willy was 4. Jurassic Park was 5. Robin Hood Men in Tights was 6. Poetic Justice was 7, which I also think would be a good name for this movie.
Agreed.
Sleepless in Seattle, which we should do, is 8.
Yes.
No, that's the movie of the name of a poet who fights crime.
I'm here for that.
Poetic Justice.
I am here for that. Sleepless in Seattle was 8. Coneheads was 9. Another Stakeout was 10. Hocus Pocus was 11.
Really?
And 12 was So I Married an Axe Murderer. And even though it was 12th, it still made $3.4 million that weekend, which is not awful. Okay, so in its complete theatric run, and Paige, you already know, so I'll just tell you. Yeah. And its total theatrical run, it made $11.5 million. So this movie lost a lot of money.
Yeah, it did.
Although it did very, very well on DVD and VHS and Blu-ray, I'm sure. But like, I just don't have the numbers on that. I bet it broke even eventually, but
yes,
it did not break even in theaters.
It threatened to tank the careers of everyone who was in it. It did tank the director's career.
Yes.
And then Mike Myers got very lucky that Wayne's World 2 came out that same year and essentially saved his movie career.
Yeah.
But after Wayne's World 2, and it's suspected because of his experience with this movie, he did not make another movie for 4 years.
Wayne's World, just to like juxtapose what Wayne's World made onto this movie, Wayne's World made total $183 million in 1992. Yep. So he had a huge hit, a huge bomb, and then did another Wayne's World. Oh, just to throw it out there, Wayne's World 2 made $47 million.
Yeah, it was not as much of a hit as Wayne's World 1,
right.
Although I think Wayne's World 2 is really fun. I enjoy 2 quite a bit.
I think it's great. Yeah, it's a little more bonkers than Wayne's World 1, but it's still fun. But that's box office for you. So this week we watched So I Married an Axe Murderer, and next week it is my turn to pick. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and it was revealed that there is a blind spot in my classic rom-com history. So I think we need to do Joe versus the Volcano because I've never seen it.
Yes, I do now remember that you told me this.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about this.
I love Joe versus the
Obviously, I've heard it's amazing, and I know about it, right? Because it's such
amazing's a strong word.
Okay.
It's eclectic.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know about it because a lot of people have talked about it throughout the years.
It's another rom-com I loved as a child, which I think may have been made for children.
You know what, Mikey? I'm kind of with you on that one. It's like this. It's a lot like this movie.
Well, awesome. I can't wait to watch it. So your homework for next week is to again get wine drunk and watch Joe versus the Volcano.
Oh, and see young Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mikey, do you have a review for us to read?
No, you tell him.
All right. So this is how you have your review run on the podcast. And that is simply to leave us a 5-star text review and, leave us a little text so Mikey can read something and have a little fun with it. I can't believe we're already over 100 reviews. Like, that's insane. So thank you guys so much for both listening and leaving us reviews. So, Mikey, you got one?
I'm going to read this one. I'm a little partial because I think I know who wrote it.
Oh, okay. All right.
R.M. Butler wrote Thursday Favorite is the title of her review.
I like it already.
In all honesty, I only started listening to support a friend from college.
Who is it?
I'm that friend from college.
Oh, are you? I thought it was Paige. Okay. All right. Cool.
I was like, RM?
I didn't really have many friends in college because I was still being like Hello.
But I have fallen, tripped upstairs in love with the whole crew.
Oh, that's a She's All That reference right there. I love it.
I look forward to my drive to work on Thursdays thanks to you guys. Thank you for all the giggles as well as the wonderful insights you provide.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for that awesome 5-star review. Who was it, Mikey? What was there?
R.M. Butler. Her name's
Well, thank you so much for that 5-star review. And guys, don't Google Butler.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Okay. Edit that out.
Yeah. So R.M. Butler, thank you so much for that 5-star awesome review. And I'm so sorry you had to put it with Mikey in college.
Yeah. She knew me when I was much different.
Well, awesome. Well, guys, if you want to have your 5-star review read on the podcast, leave us a 5-star review. So, yeah, guys, if you like this power throuple that we have here on this podcast, make sure to check out our other podcast, The Horror Virgin. And that is the only other podcast that Mikey and I are on. But Paige gets around, and she is on 2 other podcasts, Black Card Rehab and Cult Podcast. So guys, definitely check out those because they're amazing. If you want to follow us on social, we are at Romancing the Pod Show.
Yes.
On Instagram, and we are at something else on Twitter who I just have never taken the time to learn it.
It's just Romancing Pod Show because they have a character limit and it's show SHO like Showtime.
So guys, check that out as well. And if you want to follow us all individually, Paige is at Rampage Wesley everywhere, including TikTok, except for Twitter, where she is at Paige Wesley. Mikey is at MRandolph24, and I am at Todd J. Awesome everywhere.
If you want to come to our Halloween live show, you have one more day to buy tickets from today. Tickets close Friday night at 11:59 PST.
And the show is literally this Saturday. So, guys, don't miss it. It's going to be bonkers and a lot of fun.
Yes. And again, that's for Horror Virgin and Cult Podcast. We will not be talking about, well, I mean, there might be a little bit of romance in our episode.
There definitely is.
There's definitely romance.
Yeah.
But you should definitely tune in to see it. It's going to be a blast. That's it for us, you guys, this week. I'm Paige.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm Todd.
And you complete us.
To completion.
You had me at hello.
Laters, baby.
La, 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 la.